I'm Dan, a game dev with nearly a decade of experience. On my journey, I've met some really cool developers, and I've asked them to take us on a tour of games they've worked on, learning, sharing stories, and showing off some Easter eggs. So, let's begin the tour. Hey everyone, today we're taking a look at Hogwarts Legacy, and we have a guide. Please introduce yourself, trusty guide.
Hello, my name is Lee Neuschwander. I was the gameplay designer for the Hogwarts Castle that we're looking at right now, working at Avalanche for about a little under 4 years. I can look at this and just go, I'm already getting like a rush of memories. Like, oh yeah, no, we did that, and then we did that.
Well, let's head on
Yeah.
inside.
About 3 years of my life was spent mulling around all of these hallways and corridors.
So how many of yous were there? And like what does your role as a designer actually involve in like a space like this? Or
Yeah, I think there was about like 6 of us in total. There was mostly art. So we ended up having our lead, Boston, who was a wonderful person that knew the books better than anyone I've ever met in my entire life. Even the game director would make references back of just going like, "Hey, Boston, can you remind me about this thing?" And she just had everything off the top of her head. And then there was we had two other artists, and then we had a level design who was more for technical stuff, and then we had a producer, and then we had like one other artist that came in on contract, and that was like the entire team, and then there was me.
so it's quite a in the grand scheme of things, quite a small team then. So I guess you built some good relationships in there.
Yeah, I still whenever I go back over to the States and stuff, I'll still go out and have lunch with them.
That's really cool. And I'm guessing some of them have moved on, like yourself, like because now you're like what your current job you work with us, right? What was your most
Yeah.
recent I know, but people watching might not. So, what's your current job and like what was the most recent project you did?
Yeah, right now I'm working with you guys at Cloud Imperium on Star Citizen on the ship team. So I'm a vehicle content designer now. I went from making fantasy castles to sci-fi spaceships.
And which ship have you
Very
most
big.
recently worked on so we can do like a cool overlay and show it off?
The most recent one I ended up doing was the CSV, little Argo boy.
And then have you worked on what was the other one? You worked on a flying one as well, right?
Yeah, I ended up working on I worked on the Saber. I ended up doing the Raven Gold Standard and the Peregrine. Those were some of the ones that I ended up doing.
Very cool ship. So we're in good hands today. People watching us, we're gonna tour Hogwarts. So I'm
You
guessing you know this place like the back of your hand.
Yes, yes, I do. I
Do you,
actually ended up going to the big, I ended up going to the London studio tour where they got to walk through the sets, and as I was going through, I'm like, there should be a corridor there. There
oh
should be a
really?
hall. It was really fun to walk through it and just be like, oh, the movie castle was very different from our castle.
Do you like watch the movies and like I guess there's a
I
lot of
grew up.
like different is there like plot holes like in like because they're all sets, right? So as you said, like maybe they've like an invisible like in one movie it might be like a solid brick wall like this, and then in another film it's like a corridor now. Like how do
Yeah,
you
so the big thing that they ended up doing that is like every director that ended up coming in kind of changed the castle to a certain extent.
Oh, I see.
So, but it's useful because in the books there's a loophole that we ended up using, and the Hogwarts team absolutely loved that we ended up having this loophole because Renoa Ravenclaw, one of the founders, ended up making the school, and the charm that she cast on the school made it to where the grounds of the castle change every couple of years. So every rendition of the castle is a canonical representation of the castle. It could just be at a different point
Who knows what
or
would have
year
happened to
or
the school
day.
had it
Like
not been
the
for you?
entire layout will constantly
Leopold
change.
granted.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, we ended up modeling this after like the King's Cross station in London.
Oh, loads of reference there.
Yeah. So we ended up in the I think it's like one of the early missions we reference it as like our King's Cross station, but we quite literally ended up using King's Cross station as a reference.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Jake Black was the guy who worked on this, and like the work that he did on the mosaic tiling on the roof and the floors and stuff was just absolutely immaculate.
Yeah, it looks stunning. It's really cool. And like it's one thing getting these things to look good by themselves, but to actually bring them all together in a space and have them all like look nice next to one another. Like look at that above those arches there. That's really, really clean with the light
Yeah,
pouring in.
where the chain comes down and stuff that used to be, you could see all the way down into the bottom.
Oh, but for performance reasons it was brought in.
Yeah, we just had to like seal it up.
I like these little interactable elements. These are really cool. These
Yeah,
are all
Lew-
over the place, these little things that you can just like fiddle with. It's really
Yeah,
nice.
I got to place. I got to place all of those. It was a lot of fun.
Oh really, you placed that we were just messing with?
Yeah.
So you placed
If there
these
was,
as well?
yeah. The art team ended up making me a bunch of stuff, and then we made some blueprints for them, and then we just put them everywhere.
That's cool. So this is done in Blueprint, this
Yeah, it's just it's actually one blueprint for all of these, and then we just swap out the geo. These were apparently a pain in the butt to make.
Oh really, was this someone else that was the mastermind behind this stuff?
Yeah, so technically my boss Walter Park, who was like the level designer of the castle,
Yeah.
he ended up doing with a lot of the technical stuff, but he and Boston ended up working on portrait tech. So it was a whole thing to where like the interesting part of it is like they all look like they're 2D, but they're actually 3D stuff that have basically just been compressed down to look 2D. So
Oh,
these are all
really?
3D models that are inside, and the blueprint tech wizards at Avalanche basically did a case to where they took all of that 3D stuff and they basically just somehow squished it down completely flat. And if you hit it with a little like wand hip and they move, they'll jiggle.
No way, I didn't know that. I never thought to
There was an entire pass we ended up doing on objects, and we called it the Jiggle Pass, where we just ended up going through a bunch of different stuff through the castle. And our director came through, and he's like, "I want everything in the castle that can move to wiggle when you hit it."
Oh really? Challenge accepted.
So like any of the books, a lot of the books in the library can wiggle. A lot of the if you go to the potions room, it's extremely prevalent because you can.
Where's the potions room? Let's go over there. Oh, I like how you can like grab books as well.
Yeah, that one they were hard to do. They're tied to a spline. A lot of these are tied in through world events as well. We ended up setting up a bunch of string stuff to where it's like, oh, if it's hit with this spell, do this. If it's hit with this spell, do that.
So is there any interesting ones that we can do?
If you get one of the ones that's like flying around and you light it on fire, it will go faster and panic.
Oh really? Okay, let me try
Yeah,
and
they
find
don't
one.
like to be burned.
Like that one there. Should we burn it?
Possibly. Yeah, you can try hitting it with a fire spell.
Oh yeah.
Freaks out and then it goes like, ah, as it runs away.
Then it chills out again.
There's a lot of little tiny details and stuff that a lot of the people, it's like, we didn't have to make them, but we wanted to because it was just a case of like, oh, we can. We'll stay for a little while and we'll work on it.
Oh yeah, look at old jiggling.
Yeah. And all the books are destructible, so if you do the big book piles, they'll blow up.
These.
Mm-hmm. In with spell.
Oh my gosh. See, these are the things that were just not known. Oh my god. We're gonna have a whole segment of this just on us destroying this room.
This is the kind of fun that we wanted to go for because it was a case of just like when you cast spells in the school, we didn't want it to just be during puzzles, and after you solve a lot of the puzzles, we wanted to make sure that there was still like some fun stuff that you could do just moving around. Yeah, so these are actually world events that another one of the things that I ended up doing, where they have a pool of different things that they can pull from based on the area that they're in. So if you find a chalkboard like this in the astronomy classroom, it'll pull up astronomy stuff versus the one in the potion room will pull up potion stuff.
And it just goes from, it knows where it is based on where it's loaded into and then just pulls from a directory. That makes sense.
Here's one somewhat Easter egg. If you look up, you can. These are made in the style of the stuff on the wall to the right. They were made to look like the rules and stuff that Umbridge ends up putting up on the wall. It's like a
Oh,
little nod.
where should we go next?
What common room are you?
I'm Ravenclaw.
Oh, me too, me too, me too. The majority of us on the Hogwarts team were actually Ravenclaws.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. We thought that it was very fitting on the fact that a Ravenclaw made the school and a majority of Ravenclaws were making this school.
Well, let's head over to our dorm then. So are we near? Am I going the correct way still?
No, you ended up, you walked past, you got easily distracted. You'll have to go back down.
Should we have a look in here while we're here?
Yeah, this is the trophy room. If you actually go in, there's a couple of stuff in here that was really interesting. Like we got the Goblet of Fire.
Oh, where's that? I
There.
like that film.
Oh, this one right here. This little big pillar thing is the housing unit for the Goblet of Fire.
Oh my God, Harry Potter! Did you put your name in? Is that the thing?
Uh-huh. Yeah, inside is the Triwizard tournament. Or no, not the Triwizard Cup. No, no, no. If you end up hitting Revelio, there's a thing here. I think it's if you put left on the directional pad is the default for it.
Revelio.
There it
Thank
is.
you. Hey,
You'll
look at
get
that!
paid.
You got me some XP.
Yeah. And then you can pull up the different little stuff on it. So we ended up getting all these little bits. Also, all the different field guide stuff is, as the Hogwarts team, we ended up getting a huge list of things that we wanted to have, to where we basically just plunged into the team's collective knowledge of what are all the small little things that we know about Hogwarts. And we ended up coming up with a list of I think 100, 200 different things. And then the systems team ended up saying all right, well, this is how many we need. So then me and Boston had to sit down and we just ended up going through the entire list that we had, and we just picked the ones that were the most interesting, or the ones that we could give specific cool things to, because we didn't want to have stuff that you could find that had information on it that did nothing. We really wanted to avoid that as much as possible. So a lot of the things that do have little pages are either things that we were allowed to make unique art for, like the big art. Oh, this is a world event. This is a fun one.
Jesus Christ!
Yeah, they give they got no chill. Oh, a funny story about these little doors here off to your left. So these
Okay.
are the Arithmancy Doors. They originally almost didn't make it into the game.
Really?
The reason why they did is when we ended up releasing an announcement video and they showed some pieces of concept art, we ended up looking at the YouTube video, and one of the big comments was people going oh my gosh, that door with all the symbols on it looks so cool. It's going to be something interesting. So I was able to take that little snippet and all the comments and go to the game directors and say hey, remember that the idea that me and this other designer that ended up leaving the project about halfway through. We had prototyped this out, but it was on the chopping block, and when we ended up seeing the video and people's reactions to it and stuff, I ended up making a case to the directors of we got to keep it, and we got to see if we can really push in order to keep the frame around it and stuff so that we can use it. And they're you know what, it got enough of a positive spin on it, let's do it. And it was a case of initially they were going but does it fit into the budget? Because we were really tight on our budget.
So we have you to thank, Lee, for this?
The one that we have to thank for it is Boston, who managed to work a couple of extra hours in order to give me the art that I needed in order to do it.
So it's such a common trend in the industry, I think, where you get a project and the people are so passionate about it that it gets to a point where it's not even about the job anymore, it's personal. I'll work the extra hours to make sure this gets in the game because the players want it.
And that was basically everything in this game had basically that mentality to it, where it's just half of the things in the castle alone would not have come out if our team wasn't so dedicated to trying to fit this thing so full of stuff as just a giant love letter to the fans. But yeah, as far as the common rooms go, there was a lot of a lot of decisions that ended up having to get made because once again there was a lot of just constraints on like, oh, we want to do this, but just having that budget come in and be like, okay, you can only decide like a couple of these. It's like originally one of the things that we wanted to do for the Ravenclaw common room was to have it to where you could see out of all the glass.
Oh, right, this
So
stuff.
it would be, yeah, so it would be a case of like every window here you'd be able to see outside. Like it wouldn't be opaque, you'd be able to see completely out. And that was going to be like the unique feature of the Ravenclaw common room is that you would be able to get the best view in the entire game.
I think we need a PlayStation 6 for that one, mate.
Yeah, it was so incredibly expensive that it just we couldn't justify it. So it's like, okay, well, let's try to figure out something else. So like we ended up doing a couple of magic things like the books flying around or
I love these guys who are like, we saw them in a few different places around the castle, but they're just I'm assuming it's just a simple actor overlap box, and it just plays the
it is
animation.
100% just it is a like proxy triggered and it just stops you from going to the spots you're not supposed to.
Yeah, so if I was a witch,
Mm-hmm.
I would for me it would this side would be open and this side would be closed.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
Well, actually, what will happen is because in the books, the witches are allowed to go into the wizard's dorms, but wizards are not allowed to go into the witches' dorms. That was a detail in the book that we had to follow.
Oh, so there's just no knights there if you play as a witch.
Yes, yeah. So you can go down. It's like that in all of the dorm rooms. I think in the Gryffindor ones, you'll slide back down the stairs. This is the only common room that you're able to hop on your broom and straight up leave.
Really? Let's give it a go.
No, so if you go all the way out, but yeah, this bit right here, you can just hop on your broom and fly away, and it is the one of the very few spots in the castle where we allow you to do that.
That is crazy.
And when we ended up cutting the visuals for seeing outside the windows, that was one of the things that I pushed for. And I was just like, no, we got to be able to do this. We got to be able to do it. No, we ended up making it to where every common room had a special little thing. I think probably the most well-known one was the Slytherin. We ended up giving the squid Easter egg that if you bang on the glass and stuff, you'll get slapped.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. I like that though, because it means there's always something new to discover. I think Baldur's Gate does a good job of that. You know, like you can come back to the
Yeah.
game and just discover new stuff all the time.
Like it was very rewarding to see people enjoy this place so much. I was really just shocked at the sheer dedication that the fan base has to this universe, to where it really transcends any kind of like creator or something like that. You're just like, no, this world belongs to the fans 110%, and they really make the experience different than working on another IP. Oh, there's cats in here.
Cats? Where?
Yeah, you can pet the cats.
Where?
Oh, there should be one right in there. It's not here. It's at nighttime. It's probably gone. Oh, wait, no, is that it? Yeah, there it is.
Cat.
Yeah, this was one of the big things. We had to make sure that we could pet the cats.
Thank God.
Yeah. When cats were introduced into the thing, the director literally came to us and said, like, you have to be able to pet these. It's non-negotiable. We have to pet these.
He's so friendly as well. My cat's not like this at all. My cat just runs away. I'm looking at the mirrors, which I've recently become somewhat of a interested party in how
Oh,
mirrors
yeah.
work in games, because we recently did some mirrors on the Polaris in Star Citizen, and they're not difficult to do, but they are difficult to do in a way that doesn't kill the game. And you can see the way that this game's approached it is quite clever. It looks like it's taking a capture of the player's screen and then either doing some mad stuff with anti-aliasing or using parallax occlusion to step it back further. So if you see I face this way, you can see my ear and and then if I go this way, you can see my back, which isn't really how mirrors work, but it's because it's cheaper to take the render that's already happening, which is on the screen here. but then you don't want to create an infinite render loop. So I guess the character is masked in this. Yeah, it looks like is that sofa in the shot? No, it looks like the props aren't rendered. It's just the room itself,
Yeah, it's only rendering, I think, like the base layer.
which makes sense because I mean this game is very expensive. Not that Star Citizen's cheap, but this
No.
Star Citizen isn't a console game. This is, so it needs to be. That's all.
Yeah, to where a lot of the times, like, if it can run on PC, that's great, but are you also going to be able to run it on everything
Probably
else?
not, because this is on Switch as well. This game, isn't it?
Yeah. The fact that there is a game just in this castle itself, and that's not even addressing any of the gameplay that's in the Overland.
Yeah, the Overland is something that I mean we're staying to Hogwarts for this, but maybe we can talk a little bit about the Overland and the different areas, because before you jumped on, I had a little explore of a few different areas. There's like Hogsmeade Village. What a cool place that is.
Yeah, Hogsmeade. We ended up working a bit on it. Some of our artists ended up getting dragged on to work on some areas of the castle. Or not castle, part of the village and whatnot, because they had like one artist. That did
Really,
that
that's
whole thing.
incredible.
Yeah, it was a case of there was one level designer for Hogsmeade, and there was one dedicated artist for it, and then one of our guys ended up getting pulled over from the castle stuff in order to help work on it, because it was starting to get like optimization hell was bad in Hogwarts, but it was even worse in Hogsmeade.
And then you have the the forest just north of that. That's a really cool place, I think.
Yeah, the Forbidden
We've got a
Forest one.
unicorn from there.
There was actually, yeah, funny enough, when you look at the map, like it is honestly huge.
Let's have a look at it. So the map, yeah, here we go.
Like it is big. There's a lot of space to cover. I think it's like if you travel on broom from like the coast up to the highlands, I want to say it's like a 30-minute flight or something if you don't do boost the entire way. Like it's really long.
Yeah,
But
it's crazy how long it takes to get there.
to give you some scope and whatnot, at one point in time, so if you zoom out all the way, like
This is as far out as it'll let me.
Oh, it is? Okay. So
Yeah.
there, like, you can kind of see some of the residue of it on the
Like
map.
here.
But the initial plan was in the same way that you go down to that little bottleneck at the coastal cavern, and then it goes all the way down to the coast.
Yes.
We had like 4 more spots that were about as big as the coastline here that were initially planned. And that would have been, there was the Goblin Coast right off to the side of the Fieldcroft region, or the Feldcroft. So into the corner over on the left-hand side. So bottom left-hand, there would have been like another coastal area right down in here, and you can kind of see some of the spots.
Yeah, I
So
see
there's
that
a
little
whole
like
area over here that was going to be there. Over by the spot, so you see where there's like no names between the southern Hogwarts region and below. So in between Hogwarts Valley and the Hogwarts School region, see where it like blips off a little bit?
Yeah, here.
There was going to be a access to an entire swamp area over here, and that's where you would get all of the high-level trolls.
I guess this is why it's important that we build our games in ways that are kind of like jigsaw pieces like that, where we can, if we have to finish the game eventually, right? So being able to like remove a piece of the jigsaw if it's not as important as the other pieces. If you would, you can only do that if you set yourself up to be able to. And like you said, it still takes 30 minutes to get you from south to north, which is absolutely incredible. And
we were, because like and then on top of that, we were also going to do more into the Forbidden Forest. That was going to be a whole big area, and then there was going to be more to the Highlands. So on both tops, there would be stuff off to the left and the right.
So I guess quickfire, we can I'll zoom in on like this area here. So I've got some footage already made. So this is what these kind of coastal areas look like. And then over here, this lake just outside. Then Hogsmeade. The Forbidden Forest. Yeah, and that was all I got. I mean, you can still see there's tons.
This is the greenhouse.
Not much opportunity for us to get sidetracked this time.
No.
Oh yeah, because the community are in love with the teacher here, aren't they?
Yeah, when when the video came out, we knew straight off the bat that people were going to love Professor Garlic.
For the people watching, I had to come and see her because I imagine, like, for a lot of them, she's the main reason they're watching. As you said, when the trailer came out, the community was talking just as much about her as the game, as gamers do, right?
Yes.
But what a stunning environment! Like, I remember this being like where one of my first lessons were when I was playing through, and I just couldn't believe it. It was like, this is when I knew the game was going to be special when I came in here. I think it was here, and then there was like another classroom where I had to like play like a mini game with somebody.
Yeah, the Charms class.
Yeah, the
Charms class has one of my favorite professors, Ronan. He was one of those like characters that when we first ended up doing playtests, I was like, oh, this right here is my favorite professor, because he's just he gives you that vibe of like, this is the professor that actually makes you want to learn. It's like, this is a good teacher.
Yeah.
And when you're like growing up through school and stuff, and you're like, oh, you always have that one teacher that you can tell they don't enjoy teaching, and therefore you don't enjoy taking
it's hard to get engaged.
But then there's always that one teacher that you've had in your life that was just like made the difference, and you just wish that all of your teachers were enthusiastic as that one teacher. And Ronan very much gives across that energy of being that teacher.
Yeah, I think you find that a lot with in the developer community as well. Like, just listening to you talk about the game in general, like, the passion you have for it is like awesome. And I think when people have that about games they're working on, it's just so good. And I hope some students are watching this and it gets them excited about, you know, one day they're going to be in a position where they're working on a game like this, and they're going to know they're involved in something really special.
Yeah, I mean, games in general is such a unique medium because it allows a certain level, like, it is engaging media. Like in a book, for example, you never have a point where like you're reading a chapter and then it says, hey, can you remember what you read like 3 chapters ago in order to continue reading the book? Or you have like a book that's super well made to the point of like a Game of Thrones novel, but you get to choose where the book goes.
Yeah.
Like there are certain things that are only doable in the medium of video game that truly makes it a entirely different medium, separate from like movies or animations.
Well, in those mediums, it's locked off, right? I mean, people play the story of this, and it may take them like 40 odd hours or however long it is, right? But they can keep playing. I know one of our producers at work, he's like 100%ed this game, and I think he had a bug that was stopping him get like 1 collectible.
Yeah, I felt so bad.
He was messaging you, right?
He sent me a message on like my first month while I was working here. He's like, "Oh, Lee, like, what the hell? Why isn't this thing working? Like, fix it." And I'm like, "I can't." And I was like, "But I feel bad because I know exactly what's wrong." And it's the thing that we were supposed to have fixed prior to when I ended up leaving.
But like, that's the thing, you know, a film lasts however many hours, right? A book takes as long as it takes to read. This, I think games do a great job of letting you explore, not only at your own pace, but also for as long as you want. As the epic music starts to play.
Exactly. No, we did such a good job with the music. Peter Murray, I think that was his name. He did such a good job on the soundtrack. I think they ended up winning a Grammy for it, or at least they got nominated for one.
I can believe it. It must make you proud. You know, I'm flying on a griffin around Hogwarts, and like, you know, you and your colleagues crafted this.
There is one one little story that I want to share. So this is an Easter egg that was actually left for me from the Hogwarts team. Um, it's everyone else will be just like, oh, cool, there's a leaky roof, regardless of whether or not there's rain outside. But it is a little Easter egg that the Hogwarts team left to me when they found out I was leaving.
No, and they're like crying because you're going.
Um, partially, but the main thing was that one of the dungeons that I ended up coming up with, and we ended up doing the whole design for it. We ended up prototyping it. It was like my little pet project, and it was going to be in the Hogwarts dungeons, and there was going to be a part where the room would flood, and one of the sections that would lead you to this puzzle was that there was going to be a mop that was sweeping up all the water that was overflowing to keep it from going out into the rest of the castle. And this right here is Sad Mop.
This mop here.
This mop right here was what it was initially going to be animating, cleaning up the puddle of water. And if you had solved the puzzle and you freeze the cauldron, it would make it to where the mop would happily get a break and he would just be leaned up in his bucket and he would be happy. But then if you thawed the cauldron and the aquamantula started casting out again, or it was a case of you just never froze it in the first place, the mop would just continually sadly trying to clean up the puddle of just like a Sisyphean task that it would just never finish. And I ended up getting like an animator and stuff when I told him the thing. He's like, "Oh, dude, I totally want to do this." So like we had animations for it. Weren't finished, which is why they aren't in here. But we ended up putting in so much work, and then it got cut at like the very last moment. And I was just really bummed about it. So when the Hogwarts team at the very end was doing the final rendering art pass, this was like my last 4 months or so that I was working. They ended up pulling me over at one point. They're like, "Hey, we added something for you," and they're like, "We added in Sad Mop," and it was just like a touching moment of the team and such, where I was just like, "Aww." So this was my one personal Easter egg in the game that wasn't really made as an Easter egg, but it had special significance for me while I was working on it.
That, Lee, couldn't be a better way to end what has been an absolutely amazing tour of Hogwarts. To end on the note where your old colleagues had a very creative way of saying goodbye to you, and if
Yeah.
any of them are watching or listening, he's in safe hands with us, and he's loved just as much as he loves you guys. So to end then,
Mm-hmm.
one piece of advice for a game designer who's studying right now, or someone who's thinking of becoming a game designer, what piece of advice would you have for them as they're in their beginning level of their journey?
The biggest thing that I can give for any aspiring person that wants to go into design as a field is figure out the niche that you kind of want to go into. It's the easiest, not easiest, but it's going to be the best way for you to get your foot in the door. Because like design is such a convoluted thing of just like, okay, well, what is design? There's narrative design, there's technical design, there's systems design, there's so many different things that are covered in the portfolio of design that like no one's going to get into the industry if you just go up and say, "Oh, I want to be a designer." They'll laugh at you and go like, "Okay, what kind?" So the best advice that I can give to anyone trying to get in is have an idea as to what kind of designer you want to be and focus your skills on that specific thing, because it will allow you the best chance of getting in and getting to do what you want. Because the nice part about this industry is it's a bit like a small town. Once you're in, you're in. If you want to put up with all of the pros and the cons of being in the industry. But it is very much a case of getting in is the hardest part.
Oh yeah, for sure.
To like kind of set your eyes in the sense of like if you want to be a narrative designer, you're learning a very different set of skills than you would if you wanted to be a level designer, which is then very different from the skills that you would want if you wanted to be a systems designer or a technical designer. So it's like knowing what you want to go for within the ballpark of design is the best the best chance and the best learning experience that you're gonna get. Because like I ended up starting in this industry as a level designer, which then allowed me to get into help Walter, who was the level designer of this castle. And then as I was helping him, it just so happened that the game design position for Hogwarts was open. I was like, well, can I do that too? And he's like, oh, please. Because he didn't want to do the game design element of it. He wanted to do the level design part of it because that's what he knew. So he handed that off to me, and eventually I ended up getting the official job role of Hogwarts gameplay designer. So it's just a case of, and now I'm a vehicle content designer, which is completely separate than the skill sets that I initially ended up learning to do the castle. So it's like just once you get in, your opportunities are nigh limitless, but you just have to have a starting point. There's no way in hell that you'll be able to master everything that you could possibly need to in order to get into whatever job you wanted straight from the word go.
Well, that was great advice, and Lee, I'd like to thank you again, not only from myself, but on behalf of the people watching as well. It's been a pleasure, mate.
No, it's been a lot of fun. When you ended up asking me to do this, I was just like, oh man, that sounds like fun. I get to basically like gush and reminisce.
Well, it's been fun gushing
Yeah.
and reminiscing. Yeah. I guess we fade to black.
Yeah.